Hi, everyone. We're back, right? Another podcast to help educate you on what it means to hire an attorney, what to expect, all of the stuff, and then also why Raitt Law is the best choice. Right? So today we have an exciting episode. We're dispelling lawsuit myths. And so, and we're going to do this in a one-to-one fun fashion. Bobby's going to tell us what the myth is, and then I'm going to dispel it and explain it to you. So I'm excited. This is going to be a fun one. All right. Thanks, Bobby. Tell us about these myths.
Yeah, so the first one I have here is all attorneys are ambulance chasers. What do you think of that, Tom?
Well, some are, right? I do like that myth. And one of the funny things about it is that there was a recent commercial, right? We had another law firm that did a commercial, and I thought it was pretty funny. But it's not true. Obviously, we're not sitting on street corners waiting for someone to get rear-ended. We're not, doing all these other things. I don't see an ambulance driving around and I go follow it. That's not how people really get cases. That's not how attorneys get cases. Cases get attorneys by being good at what they do, and then also making themselves available so that you can find us. That's what these podcasts are for. The other way that attorneys get their cases is that they get them through professional referrals. So let's say your neighbor is an attorney, but he only does he does wills and trusts. He doesn't handle these cases where it involves someone who got injured. But if you talk to him, hey, Bob, you're my neighbor. I got injured. And do you know anyone that handles these cases? He will then call us, right? Or another law firm, but preferably us. And then we could help you out through that relationship. So yeah, we don't chase ambulances. We don't do any of that stuff. We don't listen for sirens. We get our relationships through direct contact, and we also get our clients through these professional relationships we have.
Yeah, we're fortunate enough, quite frankly, not to have to. But as Tom offhandedly mentioned in the beginning, some attorneys do. Some attorneys hang out at hospitals. Some attorneys look for ambulances, I imagine. But what it comes down to is, do you want to be that guy that is basically desperate, right? Because why would you want to chase ambulances? Why would you want to hang out at a hospital? You want to be good at what you do. You want the people in your community, whether they're other attorneys like Tom mentioned, doctors, insurance people, to know that you're good at what you do so you don't have to rely on something like that. So while that is generally a myth, I'm sure there's some that do it, for Raitt Law, never even thought about it.
Not to interrupt, but I think an important point is that if you get a phone call and it's from an attorney and you didn't reach out to anybody yet, that's a big red flag, right? If you're sitting in the hospital with your family and you're talking about what your next treatment is going to be, and the first thing you get is a phone call from a law firm, I would be very suspect. Right, I would be very suspect on getting that call, and certainly if you do get a call like that, right, we welcome you to call us, and we'll explain how that process sometimes works, which is shouldn't be done.
So this is a huge red flag for you. If you've been injured, say in an auto accident, and out of the blue, someone or some law firm contacts you, you've never heard of that person or that firm, huge red flag. That's not what we do here. We don't just throw out, letters to people that we haven't been referred to or that we heard were in an auto accident. We actually engage with individuals who refer us to that person because that's a loved one. That's another one of their maybe attorneys, or that's their doctor, or someone that knows about Raitt Law, the work we do here, and they want to get us involved in helping that individual. So big red flag. You hear from an attorney that you don't know where it came from, think twice before responding to that individual.
Amen.
Yes. Okay. Another myth, and I'm going to start to talk about this one. Tom, you can jump in. Many people think when you go to an attorney, you're filing a lawsuit. In other words, in order to get money, you have to sue. And when we say sue in the industry, we mean literally file a complaint in court and proceed with a lawsuit in court. That is far from the truth. And what's interesting about that whole issue is I've been doing this now for 34 years. And over the years, the amount of times I've been able to try to settle a case, resolve a case, get my client money before we actually file suit has changed. In the beginning, back in the early 90s, we first tried to settle a lot of cases, and the insurance industry was very stringent. They were very tight. They wouldn't give us the right consideration. So then over the years, we decided, why are we wasting our time? And we would file lawsuits if we thought we had a case that could resolve well within a lawsuit, and we wouldn't bother doing a what we call a demand or a demand package with the insurance industry or the insurance company, the adjuster, before we filed suit. And that's the way we proceeded for a very long time. And then what we found out is that with our experience and with our success and with the way people thought about Bobby Raitt and Tom James on the other side, I always say the other side of the V, because you have Mr. Jones versus V, Mr. Smith, right? So the defense attorneys, the insurance companies, the businesses, all these people on the other side of the V, they got to know Bobby Raitt and Tom James over the years. And we realized, why don't we try to do these demand packages a little more and see what we can do? Because we're never going to recommend to a client that they resolve the case if we don't think it's a good resolution, if we don't think it's a good number, if we don't think it's the right amount of money, or that we can do better by filing a lawsuit. And what do you know? Based on our reputation, based on our experience, at this point, we probably resolve about 75% of our cases without the need for a lawsuit. So depending on the firm, depending on the attorney, yeah, it can be a myth. I mean, some attorneys feel just file it right away. That's not the way we do it at Raitt Law. We want you to get money as soon as possible. And if we think we can do well by you without filing a lawsuit, but actually making a demand and working with the insurance company to get you money, that's what we do first.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, especially the timing issue. If once a lawsuit is filed, we lose control over the timing of that case. The judge sets the schedule once we file a lawsuit, and that schedule can go out for 2 years. Right. And nobody wants to wait. Right. If we can get you the fair compensation within 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, rather than going through an entire litigation process of 2 years, we absolutely will do that, right? But there's one thing I wanted to add to what you were saying too, and it gets to the issue of filing the lawsuit, not filing a lawsuit, because once you file a lawsuit, that becomes part of the public record, right? You would, if I was filing a lawsuit, you'd see Tom James versus someone else, and some people don't want that out in the public record. And so the way to avoid that is by getting a case resolved through these demands. It's also really helpful for people who are suing people that are close to them, right? So let's say the negligent person, the person that caused your injury, was your spouse, and you don't want there to be a lawsuit against you versus your spouse out there filed in the public record. Or let's say it's your neighbor's dog bit some member of your family, and you're very good friends with your neighbor, but you don't want a lawsuit that's filed out there where it's you suing neighbor. Well, we have a way of getting around that, right? We have that method of getting these cases resolved through demand, so we don't have to get these things filed. So you don't have to worry about the uncomfortable "I'm suing you" type of, when you run into them outside on the lawn or these other things. So I mean, we've been through this a lot. That is definitely a myth. Right? It is definitely a myth that a lawsuit is required for everybody, and we have the knowledge and experience to help you get through this without that.
Yeah, and this might be a little in the weeds, but it's kind of an offshoot of this same issue. We have a lot of clients that come to us. Obviously, a lot of them say, "I'm not the kind of person to sue. I'm not the kind of person to sue," and we understand that, right? But you're the type of person that has been injured. You're the type of person that deserves compensation because you can't do what you used to do, or you miss time from work, and that's what insurance is there for, right? And a byproduct of that is, if we have to file a lawsuit, we counsel people all the time, because they'll be like, I really don't want to sue that person. I don't want to take them for everything they're worth. This whole issue of going after the individual. It's kind of a twist on what we were talking about, because once we get to the point where the best result is to file the suit, a lot of times we explain to the client, we don't have a choice but to to name your neighbor Mr. Smith in the lawsuit, because technically we're suing him or her. But there's nothing to say that we have to go beyond their insurance. In other words, they have liability coverage in their insurance, which covers that individual for anything that's done wrong, either on their property or with their vehicle. And say they have a certain amount, say they have a $100,000 policy. We don't have to go above, even if your case is worth $1 million. We don't have to go above if that's what you want us to do. So we're never going to be hitting them in the pocketbook, so to speak. We're never going to be going after their assets. Of course, the corollary to that is sometimes you don't care, and that's something we can also do. But we work with our clients to their satisfaction. We're not going to make them any more uncomfortable than possible, because we understand the process itself can be uncomfortable. But the truth of it is that Tom and I make it as comfortable as possible for you to be here as our client. We really do. Another myth: if I get injured in any way, I can get money. Go, Tom.
Ooh, yep. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. So, yeah, that is definitely a myth. Just because you are injured, whether it's a minor injury or a major injury, does not mean compensation is coming. There has to be a negligent party, right? Negligent is our legal word, but there has to be someone at fault for causing your injuries. When we're talking about car crashes, that's pretty easy, right? So you're sitting still at a red light, you get rear-ended and you're injured. Well, that could actually turn into a case, right? Because we're starting with step one. There has to be a negligent party. That's the person who smashed into the back of me. Now, when it comes to auto accidents, there's a number of other hoops. It isn't just enough that you have injuries, right? There needs to be these certain criteria that we have, and we explain that and break it down to all of our clients when they come in for that initial meeting for us. But also we have slip and falls, right? Just because you slipped and fell somewhere and were injured, that does not mean someone else is legally negligent, right? Or that they're legally responsible for the injuries that you suffered. Same goes for if you get injured at a construction site. Same goes for if you get injured through a dog bite, right? Dog bites, everyone thinks those are black and white, but it's not black and white on those things. So definitely a myth. Injury equals compensation. There's a lot of other hoops, but that's why we meet with everyone face to face. That's why we meet with you. We discuss the case, we outline the law, we explain the law, and then we explain how the facts of your case either fit into the law and we can get you compensation, or we explain how your case does not fit into the law and you would not get compensation in that situation.
Yeah, there's basically two elements we always talk about. Injury is one of them, right? I mean, obviously it has to be caused by the incident, but the other is negligence or liability or fault, and there has to be a party at fault. And then you're talking about individual areas of the law. Auto accidents have had a component since the early 70s where you can't successfully make a claim or sue for any old injury. You have to meet a threshold. Slip and fall law has changed a lot over the years, most recently a few years back, when those that fell had a huge benefit in the law all of a sudden that they didn't have for years, because some common sense came to the law in a ruling that made it easier for people that were injured due to the defective condition on a property to pursue a claim. So at the end of the day, certainly just because you're injured, you're not going to get money. But again, call us. I mean, we've spent over 50 combined years going through all these different areas of the law to make sure that we could help clients if at all possible. Another one, attorneys are expensive. Why don't you tell them how we do things here at Raitt Law with respect to the fees?
Right. So, with regards to the way that we charge our clients, right? Obviously, there's a fee for our services. We are on a contingency fee basis. And if I could say that again, right? Contingency fee basis. All that means is that we take a percentage. And the typical percentage that you have in the state of Michigan is 1/3. Now, here's the thing, right? I know it sounds potentially like, hey, look, it's 1/3 of the recovery. That means if I'm getting $100,000, 33,000 is going to the attorney. And I hear it all the time, right? I hear those arguments, but the key is we're absorbing a lot of that risk, right? So if a case, right? We litigate a case, and let's say this case goes for 2 years, and we've fronted the costs because we don't ask you for any money at the very beginning, right? You don't have to give us a retainer. Some attorneys require that you prepay their costs, give them $5,000, and then they'll take a, they'll chip off the 5,000. We don't ask for anything up front. We take that risk. And if, God forbid, your case goes south and it doesn't result in any recovery, you don't owe us anything, right? No fee. Our fee only happens on recovery. And if there is no recovery, there is no fee. But I will say, and I always point out this, right? And I try to explain it in these terms. It's value-based too, because you should never go into any of these situations trying to do it yourself, right? Being your own attorney is probably one of the biggest mistakes that we hear from our clients, because sometimes we don't get calls for 6 months or 12 months after someone gets injured. And then we'll say, hey, well, why did you wait so long to call us? And they'll say, oh, well, the adjuster called me, the insurance adjuster from the other side called and said we could work it out. I thought we could work it out. I told them we could probably get this dollar amount. They came back at half. But now that we're at this number, I'm reaching out to you to see if you can do better. Oh, so that scenario really handcuffs us in what we can do, in how we can negotiate, in all of these things. And so the value that we provide is from the very beginning, from the moment that you hire us, we start investigating, we take over those communications, we start working with experts if necessary to evaluate the scene. Right. So if it's let's say it's a slip and fall, we'll hire the experts that'll analyze the gaps, the breaks in the concrete. If it's a car crash, we will hire the accident reconstructionist and do all of that investigation and take over all of those discussions with the adjuster. And then we're not handcuffed when we go into these situations. So probably the biggest difference that you're going to notice is that we work hard for that 1/3, right? We put in the time. We put in the time with you. You have our cell phone numbers. And I know we keep bringing up that cell phone number, right? But it's important, because if you talk to your friends who've hired other attorneys, that's not something they get. That's not the value they get out of this relationship. And that's exactly what this is. This is a relationship, and it's very personal. And we're going to do the best for you for the 1/3 that we do charge.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting point, because if you haven't had a claim or a lawsuit within the personal injury space, then you may not know this, but all these attorneys that advertise on TV, no fee guarantee, no money until you win. We all do it, so it's nothing special. But what is special is if you're coming to a personal injury attorney, you're not going to be paying a retainer with any of them. You're not going to be billed hourly with any of them. You're not going to be asked for costs up front with any of them. However, what you get for that 1/3 fee is different with all of them. And we believe that the value you get for that 1/3 at Raitt Law exceeds most every other firm in the state. So that's the way I look at it. And certainly, if we would take a retainer, if we would bill hourly, we wouldn't have many clients. That's the other thing, right? I mean, that's why personal injury attorneys on average do it that same way. So don't think you're getting anything special when you hear from the TV advertisers, no fee guarantee, no money until you win. We don't, it's the way we all do it. It's the most practical way to do it. And it's what you get for that 1/3 fee that is different. And that's what you get at Raitt Law as a good bang for your buck and a value for that 1/3. I truly believe that. No lawyer needed. This was something you wanted to talk about, Tom, because a lot of people think, and you talked a little bit about it when we were talking about attorneys are expensive, I can do this myself.
Yeah, I tell you, one thing I do love about technology is I love how it's evolving. I love how technology is changing. One of the things that I love right now is I love anything to do with AI, right? And so does the whole world. It's trending like mad.
Except for me.
However, right, except for you. However, we're running into this situation where we're having people calling us, and even some current clients are doing this, but we're having people call us where they've already vetted all of their questions through ChatGPT or Perplexity or Gemini, one of those services. And I can tell you, right? ChatGPT cannot adequately advise you on your case. It can't give you the law. It can't be specific. It can't tell you about certain other things unless you have the perfect prompt. But the problem is the public does not have the perfect prompt, right? You'd have to know the law in order to get it into ChatGPT to give you an answer. So please, right? Please, whatever you do not just open up ChatGPT, ask it a bunch of questions, and then decide that you're going to call the insurance representative, adjuster for the defendant and try and work out your own deal. It's not going to go well, right? It's not going to get you adequate compensation. And insurance adjusters, right? Bobby and I were talking about how we've been doing this. He's been doing this 35 years. I'm 21 years. These insurance adjusters have been doing it a while too, right? They're on 15, 20 years of experience, and they can smell blood, right? They smell blood when someone calls up and says, hey, I was injured, I'm calling you back. Or, hey, I was injured, maybe we can work out a deal. And they start salivating over these things because they believe they can take advantage of you. And ChatGPT is not going to help in that regard, or any other AI program is going to help in that regard. What you want to do is obviously give us a call. Get that free consultation. Figure out if you have a case. And if you like us, which I'm pretty sure you will, hire us and we'll help you going forward, but don't do it yourself. It's probably the worst thing you could do.
Yeah, so many times I hear from clients within a week of their accident, their crash, and they're like, State Farm already called me. And State Farm has a protocol, right? They encourage their adjusters to get out there and get to these potential clients of ours before they come to us and put a buzz in their ear about some money that they could give them, right? And those that fall for it, I feel bad, but trust me, and Tom said it well, they know what they're doing, right? We know what we're doing. On average, our viewers on this podcast don't know what they're doing if they haven't done it before. And even if they've done it before, things change. So at the end of the day, it's funny, he mentions AI and I laughed about it because when Tom started at Raitt Law, we're both the same age. He made a comment that I'll never forget. He said, I'm the oldest 57-year-old he knows. Tom has 7 apps, AI related, on his phone. I've never used an AI in my life, but I can tell you this. We have clients that try it, and he'll come to me and he'll say, you can't do it this way, because it's what you put in the app that matters, right? Tom knows what to put in the app. Tom uses AI better than anyone I've ever known. And in our practice, it's incredibly beneficial because the truth is he knows what to put in to get the right thing out. And he's shown me versus a client that tried to do it on 2 or 3 occasions, what he would have put in and the difference, whether it's something as simple as they didn't narrow it down to Michigan law within that area or something like that. So, this episode is coming to a close, and I'm going to encourage you. Tom mentioned it's not black and white. A lot of what we do is learned. A lot of what we do comes from experience. Use our experience. Give us a call, 866-RAITT, RAITT Law, or look on our website, First Raitt Law, First, FIRST, my last name, Raitt, RAITTLAW.com. Feel free to send either of us an email, braitt@raitlegal, the word legal.com, or tjames@raitlegal.com. Thank you for watching.